Okay, big idea today. We're going to build off of the cell. In the last video, we talked about how a cell is the smallest unit of life. And a cell has three main jobs: integrity, balance, fluidity. Human collection of cells. If that cell is a container, let's just call it a sphere. The sphere has a center. So if there's a center, even though the cell, they're like malleable, but they're intact, and that nucleus might not be in the exact center, but there's the nucleus, there's a core. So if there's a sphere and if there's a center, there's a front and a back, a top and a bottom, and a side and a side. So when we feel stuck or like we need a reset, we can just move our body side, side, top, bottom, forward, back, to move the energy, to reintegrate, and to connect to the whole of who we are. So our mind also has this, you can think of it as a sphere, but if you think of like your brainstem, the top of your spine, and then the limbic system that branches off of that, and then the cortex from the back to the front, there's an integration of the brainstem, the limbic system, and the frontal lobe, where it is an integrated whole. So integrated whole mind, integrated whole body. And then if you think of the mind body connected, think of the power in your heart space. And I've said this before, I learned this from HeartMath. I've never really gotten that into HeartMath because it's always been an expense to get more information. But HeartMath studies, I think, the heart in like a science way. But what I think I learned from there is that we have an energy that radiates in all directions from the heart, and within like in 10 feet in every direction. And within 3 feet, you can measure an accurate heart rate. So there's this powerful energy that radiates from the heart that doesn't radiate to the same extent from your mind or from your body. So mind intact, body intact, and then this integration from the heart. So cell, three main jobs. Then take the cell, sphere, center, front, back, top, bottom, side, side. You think of like that center, that whole, you can split it up of mind, body, like your belly being the core, the center, your mind, the integrated brain, the triune brain, I think Dan Siegel calls it. You think of that integration, you think of body integration, the two together radiate this power from your heart. So now there's this thing that I teach kids that I'm going to add to this. So if you think, let's just think of like a whole. So let's think of, again, like the sphere. And let's think at the center of that sphere is the truth of who you are. So who I am. So there's this thing, I think it's called the fried egg, or I called it the fried egg because it looks like a fried egg, where you go into that space like who I am, and in my content would say, who am I? How do I desire to show up and express myself? Who I am, you could dial it into character traits. There's lots of like different content and ways of dialing into this truth. And all that matters is that it resonates with you. So as we come into this physical space, this who I am, I use like that example with kids. Like if you think of a kid with their boots on in summer, or just kids doing things that are just super authentic. And then they get to that age where they start to maybe look for others for validation. Maybe something happens in their life that disrupts their sense of safety and security. But this who I am goes into this who I'm afraid I am. So, and that is usually some version of not good enough. And that's where a lot of adults get stuck, is we lose this foundation, this truth, this inner knowing, and we start to get stuck in this who we're afraid I am when we start to judge, criticize, compare. And then what happens here, what we show the world is who I pretend to be. So obviously, when we lose this can become very superficial, not authentic. So quiet times allows us to resonate with who I am. And this is natural. We have a natural way of knowing our sense of equilibrium, our integrated state, mind, body, heart, the spirit, the knowing, the awareness of how this energy and motion, this emotion, how it feels, too much, not enough, just right. So if we start here, we can start to be the noticer of fear, and we can start to be the soother of fear. And then we can start to show this external version of us, who I am and how I want to show up and express myself starts to integrate. This all starts to become integrated versus losing this sense and just living in this outside space. So, namaste, if you're not a yoga person, all that means is that it just means that my sense of wholeness notices your sense of wholeness. So you could say anything, but it would maybe be weird if you said, my sense of wholeness notices your sense of wholeness.